alone in first place in the NFC East. Meanwhile, the NFC West leading Seahawks, 5-1, hosting the 4-3 Niners, who are a game back right now of all the wildcard teams in the NFC. We also have the first ever meeting between Big Ben and Lamar Jackson as starting quarterbacks. It's the highest combined win percentage in the series history between the Steelers and Ravens. And then we get to the big one in the AFC East. The struggling Patriots at the Bills. Bill Belichick has 35 wins against Buffalo, tied for the most by any coach against any team in the Super Bowl era. But these have not been your usual Patriots. And speaking of their struggles, their quarterback coach, Jed Fish, said this about Cam Newton, quote, "There's clearly some times that we haven't pulled the trigger fast enough, and therefore we're hitching a couple extra times or holding onto the ball a little bit longer than we would like to. He has to continue to do a better job reacting and understanding that the looks are always going to be a little bit different. They're always going to be a little bit faster on Sundays, and he is going to have to quickly translate the game from the practice field to the game field." That's a lot of words right there. And so let's see if we can figure out what they mean with Dominique and Adam Schefter and Louis Riddick. Neek, there were a lot of words. What did they mean?
Nah, I'm shocked that they had that many words from a Patriots assistant coach, especially that specifically criticizing a player. It seems to me like the message, they want a message out, and they're getting it out there. And if they're trying to communicate more directly with Cam through the media, or they're trying to communicate to everyone else, I don't know exactly what they're trying to do, but that is certainly odd. I think that Cam will bounce back, but that doesn't bode well, having a quarterback coach come out and say all these things about how your quarterback needs to get better publicly.
Louis, this has been so confounding because early this season we were talking about MVP caliber Cam. He looked like he was back. And then earlier this week on this show, Ryan Clark said he looks like he's aged 5 years in the last 5 weeks. What are you seeing on the tape with Cam Newton, and can he turn it around Sunday?
Yeah, I'm seeing a football team, the one that hasn't practiced a whole lot, and I'm seeing defenses that have caught up to and made adjustments to the kind of things that Josh McDaniels, offensive coordinator, is trying to do when Cam is on the football field. And that is how seasons evolve. I mean, team, you make a point, the team makes a counterpoint. You try to adjust off of that counterpoint, and then they counter again. And when you're not practicing and everyone else is, then they start to get a little bit more comfortable with the kind of tendencies you're starting to show. So now all of a sudden, some of those looks that were so clean for you early in the season because teams didn't have that familiarity with you, they're not so clean anymore. And then when you layer on the top that on the fact that you haven't been out on the field very much, Cam was dealing with COVID, he wasn't around, he missed some time, then all of a sudden everything starts to slow down. Or rather, your execution starts to slow down and it's not as sharp as it was before. And now you've got to pick it back up. Now, I will say this. It is kind of a departure from the way they normally do things as far as how they get messages to the players. Because in New England forever, it's been one voice, and that's worked very well. It's worked for 6 Super Bowl titles and 9 Super Bowl appearances. So for this to happen for a position coach, not even the coordinator, it wasn't even Josh McDaniels, it's the position coach, the quarterback coach to make this comment. Look, nothing happens in New England without Bill's say-so. Nothing. Zero. Nada. So for this to happen, obviously, this is a place that really does define the word accountability when it comes to getting your job done. And so for them to kind of put that message out there that, hey, we're holding you accountable for the things that you need to do better, it's serious. It's always serious, but now it's serious for him. And Cam has admitted as much. He's already said, look, when he was driving home after last week's game, he said, you don't start playing better, you'll be standing over there next to the coach. Because that's exactly what's going to happen. So we'll see how he responds.
Shefty, I have 2 separate sets of questions for you. The first is about the quarterback situation. We know they have Jarrett Stidham. We know there was a time we thought they were very high on him. Do you have any sense of how close they could be to making a move at the quarterback spot?
Haven't heard that at all, and Bill Belichick played that down this week. So there's no reason to think that they would do that until they actually do at this point in time. And it's interesting when you watch Cam because basically the last 2 weeks, and I don't know if this is something physical with him or what the situation is, but he has ignored basically one half of the field. All of his throws have gone to the left the last 2 weeks. He has made barely any throws to the right side of the football field. I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if that's physical. I don't know what that is, but he's basically ignoring half the field. They're ignoring half the field. And the New England Patriots right now, Greeny, are sitting there at 2-4. This week I had the Bills tight end Tyler Kroft on my podcast, and he actually said, we're not going to take this team lightly. And I thought to myself, when in the last 2 decades have we heard anybody say anything about taking the Patriots too lightly the last 2 decades. But that's where we are with New England sitting at 2-4, where we have a Buffalo Bills player saying that we're not going to take the Patriots lightly. That's good to know.
It's remarkable. Yes, considering we just said Belichick has beaten them 35 times. But that brings me quickly to my second question. Because if there's one thing Belichick has always done, it's made a lot of deals. The trade deadline is Tuesday. If the Patriots lose Sunday, they will be, practically speaking, 3.5 games out of the division lead. Could you see any selling off? Are you hearing anything about that possibility from the Patriots going into Tuesday?
Listen, they are so smart about these things usually, and they are advanced, and they always move on from players sooner rather than later. But let me remind you, next year they're going into a year where they're going to have basically more cap space than anybody. They have the flexibility to do anything they want next offseason, in an offseason where there is expected to be a record number of free agents due to the drop in the salary cap.
Right, so we will keep an eye on all of that. Guys, thank you very much. Stay with me. More on the NFL as we go. But the really big news yesterday in football came from college, where number 9 Wisconsin has canceled the game Saturday against Nebraska and paused all team-related activities for at least 7 days because of COVID. 6 players, 6 staff members, including the head coach, have tested positive.
We just felt it was important if we wanted to continue to play for the year, to make this move right now and control the virus. Your natural tendency is, let's get back on the field and get right back at it. But that's where, you have to put priorities in order and make sure that our number one concern is health and safety of our athletes.
We were wanting the opportunity, and our players were wanting the opportunity to play. And then to not have that opportunity, that's where there's a disappointment.
All right, Heather Dinich, our insider, and Paul Feinbaum rejoin me here. Heather, we spoke earlier this morning, for those just joining us, and you explained how in the Big Ten the protocol is that if a player tests positive, he can't come back and play for 21 days. And we explained that these games are not being postponed. Wisconsin and Nebraska has now been canceled. It won't be played. So, from the people you've talked to, how will that impact the Big Ten, the potential Big Ten championship, and maybe more importantly, how will it impact the Big Ten's chances of getting a team into the college football playoff?
Well, Greeny, the Big Ten recently released its guidelines for qualifying for the Big Ten Conference Championship game. And as it stands right now, if every team in the conference plays an average of 8 games, teams have to play 6 games in order to qualify for the conference championship game. Now, if teams play fewer than 8 games and that number drops, the average number drops, so does the benchmark. So, for example, if the teams play in the Big Ten play 7 games, then you've got to play 5 games. It's no fewer than 2 under the average of Big Ten games played. Now, that being said, the college football playoff does not have a benchmark for a minimum number of games to be played in order to qualify for a semifinal. Does that mean that they would put in a 2-0 team? Probably not. Would they put in a 5-0 team? Maybe they would.
That is where I wanted to go with you, Mr. Feinbaum, because you said earlier on the show, at the end of the day, all this is about Ohio State. We get it. There are other Big Ten teams that have those aspirations, but we all know Ohio State is that kind of good. What would be a reason, in your opinion, as one who lives in this every day, what would be a reasonable way for the College Football Playoff Committee to handle Ohio State and the number of games they may wind up playing?
Greeny, I think the key for Ohio State is who are they playing? And really, one of their 2 biggest games of the year outside of the Big Ten championship game is this weekend. So that's good. They're going to get the Penn State game in. That would be a tremendously quality win, even though Penn State lost to Indiana the other day. The Michigan game would also figure large, and obviously the Big Ten championship game. But if they miss a game against somebody in the lower division, it's not going to have that big of a deal. In a truncated season, quality of competition is going to matter, in my opinion, with the College Football Playoff Committee.
But give me a number. I mean, the SEC teams and others are going to wind up playing 9, 10 games. If a Big Ten team winds up playing 6, how's that going to work?
It will hurt. And I think on top of that, and we haven't even gotten to the Pac-12 yet, I mean, they're playing in an even more truncated season. But if you miss a game, I don't think it's going to kill your chances. But if you have a loss, it probably will. So I think Ohio State is